everybody, I am Liz, and today I wanted to combine all of the end of the year, end of the decade book tags and challenges that I've seen cropping up on my YouTube feed. We have 3 different challenges and book tags that I am combining together to create the ultimate end of the year, end of a decade book tag. And so we'll get in right off the bat. I'll mention the 3 videos I've taken from, who created them, and the main themes of each of the videos. The first one is 10-year book challenge book tag created by Rincey Reads. They really look back to your reading in 2009 versus your reading now in 2019, and just how have you changed or stayed the same. The second one is the end of the decade, which is created by Brews and Reviews. Kat is awesome at trying to break up the decade into 3 sections so that you can see how your reading has changed and or stayed the same in those years. And the last one is the end of the year book tag by Ariel Bissett, which is really just focusing on the year's wrapping up. She created in September. It's December now, so some of these questions don't quite apply, but let's combine all of these together. So first off, let's combine Rincey Reads' 10-year book challenge and Brews and Reviews' end of the decade and really see how has my reading changed. 2009, 10 years ago, I was in high school. I was a cute little sophomore, had no idea what the heck I was doing, and my reading really reflected the popular books of that era. And so for the most part, I read Twilight, The Wicked Lovely, City of Bones, books that I probably won't read again, although I still have high praise for Wicked Lovely, even though I don't think I'm ever going to read it again. However, 2019, I've been reading a ton of adult fiction, sci-fi, and other types of things. So one thing that makes this very difficult is the fact that I honestly didn't track my reading back in 2009 like I do now. So a lot of the books I have read have been lost to me, lost to my understanding, my memory of a brain, and so we're spitballing here. But I do have to say that my favorite book of 2009, or at least what I think was 2009, and my favorite book so far of 2019 is very similar in the sense that they're both historical fiction. The only thing is this is only historical fiction, this is historical fiction and fantasy. So in 2009, roughly, I read The Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's one of my favorite series of all time, even though going back I knew that there was some problematic content and stuff. But this year, my favorite read so far is Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. Now, it asks for my least favorite books, and honestly, I don't remember any books I particularly hated in 2009, primarily because I don't really remember much of the books at all that I read in 2009. So we're gonna skip over that and go to my least favorite book of 2019, which is The Female Man by Joanna Russ, because that was an experience that I'm never going to go back on at all. Then it talks about books that were published in those different decades and see if they're still on your TBR. For this, I have The Plague by Joanne Dame. This book was published in 2009. I've had it for about 4 or 5 years, and I haven't read it yet, which is a real disservice. And then the 2019 book I haven't read yet that I really want to is The Cold is in Her Bones by Peter Nell van Arsdale. The next one talks about genres. What genres did you read back in 2009 that you don't read now? And honestly, I still read basically every genre. I know that I took a long hiatus from paranormal fantasy and fiction, specifically vampire paranormal fiction and fantasy. However, I have recently, this year and last year, picked up some vampire stories, and I plan on picking up a lot more paranormal fantasy and fiction stories, so I didn't really leave it behind. As for new genres I've discovered, back in high school I read almost zero, if not zero, science fiction. But I read science fiction a lot, and it is usually one of my favorites. When I do finally pick up a science fiction novel, I end up loving it. The next one is talking about book habits. Did you pick up a habit that you want to get rid of in the new decade? And honestly, this is a new one. This has only happened in the last few months, and that is DNFing books. Just not DNFing because I wanted to DNF them, just DNFing because I stopped reading. I want to stop that. And a new goal that I really want to do, or a new habit, is I want to review all the books. And this has been a goal every single year of me. And I usually do really great the first few months, and then I taper off. I don't review my books as much. I usually just give it a rating on Goodreads and call it good, review it in my wrap-up, and call it good. I really want to get back to reviewing every single book I read. Now we switch gears and get into the questions for the end of the decade by Brews and Reviews. This one separates each little section, which is 2010 to 2013, 2014 to 2016, and 2017 to 2019. And it asks a couple questions based upon those sections of the decade. One was, how much did you read? And with 2010 to 2013, that was when I was finishing high school and entering college. And I know in high school I read quite a bit, especially in the fantasy type genre, but by the time I entered college, it tapered off a lot, and I didn't read nearly as much unless it was required reading. And then in 2014 to 2016, I started reading again. I discovered BookTube and started getting that flair and that love of reading back. And I actually started tracking my reading, finally. And so now we get to the last 3 years, 2017 to 2019, where I read regularly as long as I don't get hit with a reading slump or other things. And I average around 60 books a year. And what genre did I read most? This is the same for all areas as fantasy. I read a ton of fantasy, and I know this year is a little different. I've been reading a little less fantasy and a lot of other genres, but still fantasy is primarily my go-to. Now, 3 talks about favorite books or authors from these different sections. So my favorite author of that area is really 2, which was Libba Bray for the Gemma Doyle series, and the other one was Melissa Marr from the Wicked Lovely series. Whereas in the other one, I'm gonna probably go with Mary Pearson for The Kiss of Deception, because I absolutely loved that series and that book primarily. Whereas in the latest section, probably gonna go with Marissa Meyer with her Cinder series and Heartless and her Renegade series. I have really loved and appreciated every single book she's put out there for the most part, so she's one of my favorite new to me authors. The next 2 questions talks about anything you wish you had read during those decades or any regrets. And really, I always wish I had read something, but the only real series that I had wished I had read at any other time than this time was the Percy Jackson series. I wish I had read it as a kid or in middle school, not of my high school years of this previous decade, because I thought I could really appreciate it then, and I don't think I can get into it now. But as for any other books besides all the crazy amount of books on my TBR and on my shelf that I haven't read, that's really it. My regrets is a quarter of the books on my shelf are unread, and I want to change that. I want to really dwindle that number, at least half it. And the final questions at the end of the decade really talk about how you found BookTube, which I talked about. I found BookTube about, I think, 7 years ago, and it really just opened my eyes to different genres, different books, because I really just stuck to reading these super famous, mass-marketed books, and now I can really open my eyes to more indie authors and books that aren't as hyped on mainstream media that I get from BookTube. So now let's wrap up the end of the year 2019 with Ariel Bissette's reading questions. And that one is, what books did you start but not yet finished? I have a whole video on that, but let's refresh your memory. This, my friend, is the Stack of Nightmares. These are all the books I started reading and stopped reading. They're not officially DNF'd because I want to finish them, but I don't know when or when I'll have the energy to pick them up again and finish them. The next question asks if you have an autumnal book transition to the end of the year where you read something fall themed to get into your end of the year reads, and I don't do that. I really just mood read. I read what I feel like. The question 3 asks if there's a new release you are waiting on, and I think all of the 2019 releases that I've been waiting on have already been released. Question 4 asks, what 3 books do you want to read before the end of the year? And for that, I am going with 2 different stacks. One that I am currently reading, Good Omens Caraval and Hunting Prince Dracula. I think I'm close to finishing this one today, Hunting Prince Dracula, and then I can really dive into more of Good Omens and Caraval. I'm more than halfway through Good Omens and I just started Caraval. If we're talking about books I haven't started reading yet, then that's this stack, which is The Final Exam by Pauline Chen, Parish by Shannon Crane Camp, and Circe by Madeline Miller. I really want to read these books before the end of the year. Probably not going to happen because I'm going to be super busy, but one can dream. Question 5 is what book could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? And for that, I'm really hoping it's Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I absorbed the first 4 or 5 chapters so quickly that I'm really excited and really anticipating this to be a favorite read. But like I said, I just started it, so who knows? The last question, question 6, is do you have any reading plans for 2020? The only plan I really have is as soon as The King of Crows by Libba Bray comes out, I am binge reading that because it is the finale of the Diviners series, and the way book 3 ended, I need answers. I need to read it so bad. I'm so excited. I hope it still gets released in February so I can buy it for my birthday and binge through it. Obviously, any other reading plans involves just reading as much as I can while studying for the MCAT and applying to medical school, and, you know, just doing the best I can, doing reviews, doing more videos, becoming a regular BookTube patron again. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, that 2020 is going to be a very busy but also very great year. And there we have my ultimate end of the year, end of the decade book tag, book video compilation. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that it really helped you reminisce on these past 10 years of your life and really gets you excited and geared up for next year. I am going to leave all the videos I've mentioned today down below so you can check them out from the creator themselves. And in the comments down below, please give me 2 things. 1, what was your favorite book so far of 2019? And 2, what is something you are very excited about for 2020? I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, remember that I love you guys. Bye!